It's like The Craft, The Blair Witch Project, and Degrassi all rolled into one. Yay! The Witch Files, movie review. Hey Twisted people, it's your Twisted Girl here, and today I am doing a movie review of The Witch Files. A group of young women come together to form a powerful coven and discover they have the ability to grant their every wish, but soon find danger in channeling forces beyond their control. Once you get past the unnecessary found footage angle, The Witch Files actually tells an engrossing story with fun characters. Now, it's not as iconic as the well-known similar plotting of The Craft, but overall it's an enjoyable movie. Character and dialogue. So I admit, when the movie started and I saw that this was a found footage kind of angle for whatever reason, and I'll get into that in a second when I get into my cons of the whole found footage thing. But once you get past that, the characters and the dialogue is actually pretty witty when it comes to this film. And I wasn't expecting that, right? Like it's a high school type of thing. I thought they would all be kind of cookie cutter in a way. And although, yes, the characters fit a mold, because there are certain character modes you need to tell a story depending on the kind of story, but the characters with the dialogue actually had their own kind of unique way of being. And I think there were times when I laughed out loud. There were times when I wasn't expecting certain things to be said that were said that was like, oh, that's pretty smart. And so because of that, it didn't come off as like your regular sort of, teen horror scary movie type of deal. And you actually could, I'm not gonna say you could relate to the characters, but you weren't like annoyed by them for most of the film in things that they were doing or just waiting for bad stuff to happen to them. So in that regard, the characters were solid and the dialogue was actually really engaging and very funny at times. It was self-aware in its own way without being too meta. Pace. Things get started pretty quickly in this film. It's about an hour and a half, and they don't really waste time, I mean, I guess that would make sense because it's found footage, so it's not like gonna have a whole bunch of like scenes of just exposition because it's found footage. But in that regard, you kind of get into the story very quickly. Maybe in the very beginning, at first, I was like, man, this is kind of popping off a little too quickly, where, getting into the whole thing of the witchcraft and the powers and stuff. But once you get there, it's like, okay, this makes sense. And now we're on the journey. So I appreciated that because it didn't take a long time to get to that point. The portrayal of witchcraft. So let's be real. There are so many movies about witches and witchcraft, and I don't mind that. What I mind sometimes is that it's gotten to the point where it's kind of, a lot of them kind of just play it like that's the dark entity. Like the witchcraft itself is the dark entity, some really bad witch, and that's the heart of it. Satan worshipers, the wives of Satan, blah, blah, blah. And I think that's an easy route to go, and I think it's kind of a lazy route to go, right? To make it so as though a witch is like the creature feature sort of a deal, or that witchcraft itself, and the thing that it condemns it very early on. And I kind of appreciate that this film it wasn't a condemnation of witchcraft, right? It wasn't trying to tell you inherently that this is bad, that it's bad that these girls wanted to learn witchcraft. It more so the stakes, as I, say in the synopsis, is when, they start messing with things that maybe they shouldn't be messing with, in the way that they use their powers and in the way that things start to happen in the result of the consequences of that, not inherently them doing witchcraft. Predictable. Not really in the beginning. I think in the beginning you kind of don't know where it's going to go. You're kind of wondering, how they're all going to go about what they're doing. But towards the end, I would say it started to get pretty predictable in the way they were going about it and what the real danger was, but only towards the end. So it's kind of a small con. And honestly, it wasn't presented like a mystery movie. So that's not really why you're there. Not scary. The only reason why I'm pointing that out is because when I watched it on Netflix, it was in the horror category. And yeah, when something's in the horror category and not just like fantasy, and whatnot, I kind of expect some like jump scares or something, and that wasn't there. It's not an atmosphere of fear. It's not an atmosphere of jump scares. It's not that kind of film. It deals with a topic that could and is often used, like I was just talking about, in the horror genre, but the film's aesthetic and atmosphere itself is not necessarily straight out horror. So don't expect to be scared in this film. I would call it more of a dark fantasy drama than a horror film. Unnecessary found footage. Yeah, I'm not sure why they did that. Like, when I pressed play and then this red screen popped up and said this, footage is the property of this, pre-scene, I was like, I thought I pressed the wrong button. I honestly thought I maybe clicked on something that was a different film because I just couldn't wrap my head around it, this being a found footage movie. And I don't think they thought it through because they figured out a way, which at times felt very contrived, to film everything. But also, like, stuff is showed on there that's blatantly like, this is magic. And it's kind of like, if you are trying to play this like this is found footage, this is something that the police have, then one, how did it get into the theater in such a blatant kind of way, right? And I'm not saying like, oh, if it's found footage, it shouldn't be in the theater, because of course, the Blair Witch Project, right? We've seen stuff like that, found footage, but usually they keep stuff so vague and ambiguous that it can be open to interpretation on what's happening on the screen, right? That's the point of it, that it's kind of, it makes you believe it's real. So, and because it's real, it can't get too fantastical. It can't get too in your face, like out and out, like monster, out and out magic. It's almost kind of like, what's that in the corner? What was that? That's usually how they play found footage, right? And this movie, no, like stuff was levitating, like things were happening where it was like, if this got into anyone's hands and then on Netflix of all places, how am I supposed to believe that this actually really happened? Not that most of us don't believe found footage stuff happened anymore, but you want to keep up the facade in a way. That's why you're doing it as found footage. So because they weren't trying to keep up the facade, I was like, this didn't need to be a found footage kind of film. It really didn't. Alcoholism. There's references to and displays of alcoholism. So is The Witch Files Twisted approved? Yes. The Witch Files is definitely Twisted approved. I enjoyed it. I honestly enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I mean, like I said, when I saw that it was when I saw it was like such unnecessary found footage, I was like, what? Why did they do this? I don't know if they thought that through. But despite that, once I got past that aspect, I was like, this is actually good dialogue, decent characters, and the story played out in a very enjoyable way and a satisfying enough payoff. So it worked. Okay, y'all, so that is my movie review of The Witch Files. I really dug it. I'm, a little tired of the overdone evil witch thing, and I think this film did a nice spin on that in regards of telling a story about a coven of young women practicing witchcraft, and I dug that. So let me know if you dug it too. Did you agree with my pros and my cons? Are you interested in a film like this? Let me know. Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. And also let me know what are some of your fave movies that do the witchcraft portrayal okay or decently in the horror genre, and which ones get it totally wrong to you. Let me know. Comment down below. And also be sure to subscribe so that you're the first to know when I post my videos. Thanks for watching.